All right. Hello, everybody. For our next session, we had a scheduling conflict, but we're still glad that earlier this month, our founder and CEO, Becky Flint, was able to sit down for a fireside chat with Lucas Smith, Director of Agile and Program Services at Toyota. And so I'm excited to share this conversation that's packed with valuable insights on enabling agile delivery at scale across complex portfolios. So with that, we will dive right in.
Would love to, get to know a little bit more from you, Lucas, on, cars today, how digital and agile and manufacturing come together, not only at a scale, and how did it get started for you to get into this very interesting and complex environment?
I actually started as a software developer, so my background is in development. I actually started at Boeing. So most people think planes. I actually got to work on ships mostly at Boeing, so it was mostly on the defense side. So got to see, again, a very hardware and software integrated environment. I worked there for about 12, 13 years before transitioning into consulting space, where I was helping a lot of other companies with that same challenge, right, of how do you combine software development with hardware, with all the changes that are going on in manufacturing and the digital revolution. So I ended up here at Toyota almost 8 years ago now, and have had an amazing time here helping build cars, particularly around the software, the cockpit and multimedia, and the connected vehicles. So there's a ton of complexity around that. If you look back 20 years, the car that you were driving then was way simpler, had a ton of mechanical components. You might have had a radio, maybe a CD player, but your car was not connecting for GPS data, it was not connecting for maps and traffic. You didn't expect it to be able to stream Spotify to it, or to connect to your environment around you, or maybe even pay when you connected to charge it, or all of the services and things that go on outside the vehicle. So it's a very complex environment that we work in.
When we first started talking, there were quite a bit of topic around shifting to a more product-driven agile model at Toyota Connect. Can you tell a little bit more, some of both the need going towards that, some of the kind of challenges coming along as a part of the transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who's worked on physical products would know that a physical product, primary revenue is from when you sell it, right? And that hasn't changed in the auto industry for a large part. It's changing a little bit in different places. But when we sold a vehicle in the past, the expectation was that it was perfect at that time, right? So Toyota is known for quality. So the goal was quality at the time of sale, right? But now, if you think about it, your phones, the digital devices we use on a daily basis, the expectation is that those evolve over time instead of remaining static, especially for things that last for a long period of time. We're using our vehicles 10 plus years, they're still on the road, right? So the software that we build into them, or we have to have ability to update things, to modernize it, to be able to use it, to make it usable for our drivers on a continuing basis. And that's really where the complexity comes in. There's many teams. So you start with the physical vehicle. So there's the physical vehicle platform. Then there's all kind of the data, maybe like OS layer that lives on top of that, that you get data from, maybe interfaces to different parts of the vehicle. Most cars now have 50 plus ECUs in them. So there's many different sensors and controllers that are sending data back and forth. There's a lot of ongoing re-architecture for how those are connected. But the bottom line is there's a lot of data, a lot of things that need to be connected, a lot of chips. And those feed into the interface layer or the multimedia or the cockpit or the controls for a driver. So that's like the physical vehicle. But then even beyond that, most of the time you're interacting with an app, or there's connected services that you rely on, right? You want to be able to use a voice assistant to be able to take you somewhere. You want up-to-date traffic data. You might want sports. There's tons of connections in and outside of the vehicle. So for us, that transition, I think the first thing was just a realization that the experience that customers have is no longer static when we sell a vehicle, but that we have to shift our mindset to think about who's using the different parts of the vehicle and how that is going to continue and evolve over time. I wouldn't say it's an easy transition, especially for a complicated environment like us. But I think the first is really just what is your focus, right? What is your need? And I think breaking some of those layers apart and being able to talk about those and saying, okay, we're okay. When we ship a physical vehicle, we're not going to change those parts on a regular basis. But maybe we need to be able to update the firmware on parts of the vehicle every year. And then the products, like the interfaces, the navigation, the Bluetooth connectivity, the digital key, the mobile app, each of those needs a different cadence. And we can't just plan these as we did in the past, just like a big program. We might still have a vehicle program, but we need more of a product focus on each of those individual components to be able to evolve those to make sure we're meeting the customer needs and actually accelerate the time to market for each of those.
When we think about the customers as the center and think about both of the part you can change, right? When you bought a car, you bought a car. You can't just bring it back to change it all the time, hopefully. But the digital experience is ongoing. So now you have two types of sort of, if we think about the agile portfolio management way of thinking about it, is that you have a product that you sell for it. There's obviously the business and a funding model for what you sell for as a tangible physical product. And in terms of a digital product, it's evolving, right? So you continuously invest in that, and then you may not be able to charge additional, maybe you can. So it would be great to hear a little bit more. How do you think about in terms of the Toyota connected structure, in terms of your portfolio, the funding model, and how does it tie to, like you said, a one-time program and in terms of manufacturing and ongoing agility and iteration in your portfolio?
Yeah, so this is actually an area that Dragonboat has really helped us with, is that we took a look and we went back and said, okay, how are we going to improve how we function between those different components, right? Because we do have giant vehicle generation programs that are funded based on sale of the vehicle. We have cross-product and cross-organization initiatives that are funded from different sources, like compliance things, right? Or, hey, we need to support the next generation of EV platform. It's not specific to a vehicle. It's not specific just to one product. It kind of crosses all of this. And then we have the products themselves, right, where we're trying to keep that customer focus. So for us, I think the thing that the Dragonboat actually helped us a lot with was we took a look and said, look, let's put the products on the top in terms of our focus, right? So we have a product area, but we have to acknowledge that this product area has work that might be in different areas. There might be work just for that product. They might have work that's supporting an initiative over here or multiple initiatives, and they might have work that's supporting a next generation vehicle program. So if we organize around the products and then tag or track our work that way, what Dragonboat has helped us do is create visibility between those, right? So we can have reporting that shows this is the product area and the mix of work that we're working on. These are the features we've got, right? But now I can see them associated to an initiative. I can say this product, all this work I've got going, some is just internal, some is bug fix, some is associated with the EV, initiative, some is associated with this next gen vehicle program, right? So I can slice it that way. Or I can take a look from the initiative level and just quickly flip and say, what is all the work that's going on for this initiative? And how does that tie back to the products, right? I can see initiatives and I can see 5 or 6 different products and the work that they are feeding into it. So it hasn't solved all of our manual reporting, right? We still get executives who ask for different things, right? Where we have to customize some of our outputs, but it has really helped us create a base, source of truth and marrying those different elements. But again, we're focused on the product, but each product area has work that aligns to different areas. And that was a visibility challenge that Jira wasn't helping us with, or we had a real challenge with. And I'd also point out, we actually have multiple companies working on this as well. So it's not just us, it's us plus multiple different parts of Toyota, as well as multiple different vendors, suppliers. So some of them we act as just kind of suppliers, right, who are delivering things on a certain date. Some of them, though, are integrated enough that we actually have to link between multiple Jira instances to see some of that work.
Wow, thank you. It's so great to hear. And we also know, I think especially in a complex manufacturing environment, sometimes the small is the problem, cause big is the damage. So having ability to connect things together so that we can identify different ways, different teams, how they contribute is definitely critical. One of the things, I kind of noticed that, the team aspect of your organization, and a lot of times when you work in a larger organization and you feel like you're more constricted about what you can do and how you can empower, how you can innovate. Through talking to you and interact with some of your team members earlier, I feel a sense of innovation, empowerment, and still the strategic alignment. So tell us a little bit more, how do you achieve that? What are some of the lessons some of the teams can learn?
An insightful question, because engineers that are on our teams are often kind of pulled between those two things. And even myself, right? You hit a situation and you're like, hey, this would be really good from a customer perspective, but we don't have that sensor in the vehicle yet, right? So how do we do that, right? It's like, okay, if we have the data and the sensors there, we can move a lot quicker than if we don't have a piece of hardware that we might have to wait for multiple years, right? And make a business case for that to get in. So, maybe a couple things I'll say here. One is I think it's fair to set that expectation with your team and say, look, some things we can change really quickly. And other things we have to show the way first. So I think Toyota Connected particularly, and Connected Technology and a couple of the groups that we work with are really good about, let's build a POC around this, right? So if we have an idea, there's one that was out in the media a couple of years ago, was around some sensors to solve maybe the hot car problem, right? So kids are left in vehicles, It's hard, sometimes to detect that they're there, right? Or you want a better sensor to do that. So one of our teams came up with the idea around integrating a millimeter wave radar in the dash of the vehicle, and actually being able to detect life forms in the car, right? And that's not in the vehicle, but there's ways we did of creating a POC around that. We worked with some teams to actually put it in a test vehicle to showcase it. And it still took a while for it to work its way to production and make it into the vehicles. But having that ability of saying, hey, let's try it, let's show it, not just pitch an idea, I think was really, really valuable for us. The other thing I would say that's important, if you think about it from like a process standpoint, is just knowing where to kind of standardize and where not to worry about it. So I think from a scale perspective, you need to have some expectations, particularly on the boundary points of how teams report or how the process works. Just because you need to be able to have visibility, you need to be able to see dependencies, but each team can operate. You want to give them some flexibility, or as much as you can, in terms of how they operate independently, right? So for us, product areas consistently reporting the work that they're doing as matched up to programs and initiatives, we have to kind of standardize on that because we need that visibility. Now, internally to a product area, they might have 3 or 4 teams working on things, and there can be a lot of flexibility with the cadence they work. Are they more in a Kanban delivery flow? Are they working more Scrum context, right? Are they working more on just POC stuff, right? Do they have small things going on? So we want to create a lot of flexibility there and not worry so much about telling each team that they have to exactly operate the same way, but we still need something out of them, right? So that they fit in the big picture. So I'd say 2 things, just on the process side, make sure you know where to standardize, because that makes a difference, because you got to be able to fund things. You got to be able to show your progress. You got to be able to track dependencies, especially at scale. But don't sweat all the small stuff.
This is great, especially some of the key principles and why Dragonboat was built is to enable the team would have a minimum amount of the alignment and consistency, but really enable how they prefer to work, how they prefer to innovate, and really being able to drive outcome at scale. And then obviously a little bit of AI helps to doing the behind the scenes normalization, add up, calculation, and extraction definitely helps to solve some of the challenges as well. So thank you so much, Lucas, for a great insight, sort of wrapping up our session today. What are some of the advices you would like to give leaders in other organizations that try to balance governance, and or some of the other takeaways you think that, or just in general, how you think about organization can benefit?
I think one of the biggest things I would say is just understand that big organizations have large risks, right? If we release a vehicle with bad software, it's not going to one person, it's not going to 10 people, it's going to millions of people, right? And that's a real risk. So you have to understand and be able to speak to the organization that you have. And sometimes there's really fun ways around that, right? So instead of saying, hey, we need to be able to push everything right to production, right to all the vehicles, create an independent or create a path in between, right? Create a canary environment. Maybe use your employees as test guinea pigs, right? Google does that with their search. They modify search and they push it to all their employees first before it goes out to everyone else. One thing we're doing a lot more of is pushing changes to our employees, right, who have lease vehicles, so that if we see things there, they don't have to go out to everyone, right? So that things like that can enable the organization to think more iteratively, and you're still answering the risk, the key challenge that some of the compliance and some of the process parts of the organization want to make sure, okay, we want 3 months of testing, right, to make sure everything's good before you deploy it. Okay, well, maybe we can deploy it to a friendly group, right? Or maybe you can have some early adopters that want that technology before everyone else and are willing to give you feedback with the understanding it might not be perfect. So from a acceleration standpoint, I would definitely say that, that's helped us a lot at Toyota. I think also just acknowledging that products and things go through different life cycles, right? When you're innovating initially on a product, you want to be able to move as fast as you can, try things, build POCs, validate whether this is really something the customer wants. But then once you actually scale that into production and scale that into a real environment, you might not be able to do that quite at the same speed. You might need some more guardrails, right? So, and I think being able to speak that and understand that with your teams and know that there is a life cycle there. And then at some point, you likely want to end of life that product. And that's not a bad thing, right? You're moving customers, you're moving your products onto something better. And that's a good thing. Right. So, but each of those stages is a little different, right? And the teams and your organization need to be able to treat each of those a little different.
sometimes little restrictions, sometimes perceived sort of control really is to think about the real customer, right? When the customers they're much more customer involved. We need to make sure it covers the corner cases and make sure there's safety and compliance, all the other things that are controlled. And understanding life cycle of the product is a great way to talk about it, the level of impact, how do we validate that? And then last but not least, you think about it, only when we have a visibility and access to information, regardless of the vehicle itself or your product portfolio, that is critical to make the right decision at scale. So super excited having you here, Lucas. Would have loved to.
Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you would like to learn more about how Dragonboat has helped customers like Toyota on this journey, our customer team is available at the Expo booth. So I hope you've enjoyed Accelerate, and I will see you at our last and final session.